fine. We're on the wide right now. Be wide, gentlemen.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Morning. Oh, I still can't feel you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Morning. Thank you very much. I understand that today's weather is a bit for comfort of your own home and coffee, but we are here today and you are welcomed. My name is Nokuda Zibitope, the EThekwini Youth Development Manager, and I'll be a driver for this program for today. Our theme as we commemorate Youth Month and is focusing on advancing youth inclusion in the G20. I hope that everyone has their brief pamphlets, especially my age group. This one because it has important information that takes you through to why we are here today and how can we be included in the G20 discussion and we form part of it. But without wasting time, as we all agree that every church has their own way of welcoming people, kindly please all stand as we prepare for our national anthem. We are going to do both anthems, the national South African anthem as well as the AU. We'll start with the South African national anthem. Thank you. Thank you very much. As I was standing in my corner, Deputy Mayor, I'm realizing that we have a lot of work to do when it comes to understanding what should be done when the national anthem is being sang. But we'll cross that bridge in another time. Today we're here to focus on G20 inclusion, especially for young people. Deputy Minister invited here are young people from different organizations in parts of EThekwini, NGOs, youth non-profit organizations, as well as young people that are volunteering in their own spaces of their community, as well as young people in academia. Those are young people that are invited, as any young person that is doing a difference in their community. They got an invite to attend today. I would like to apologize firstly in advance, as I will not be following the standard protocol, because I will be starting with my young people. That's me greeting you. I would like to acknowledge the Deputy Minister, Mr. Alvin Walters. Thank you very much. The Deputy Mayor, Mamzandile. Always. The Deputy Mayor is with the councillors of EThekwini. I would like also to acknowledge any other important guest. What they did not do is give me a list of everyone that is here today. But because I am the last one of the city, I will get away with this. So kindly forgive me if I did not acknowledge you by name, but understand that all protocol is observed and we acknowledge the importance of your presence in today's gathering. I hope I'm forgiven. But before we go further with today, allow me to welcome on stage, because in every house, every country, every city, you must have someone that is going to welcome you so that you feel comfortable. You have the parts that is important to have more discussions that are relevant to you. Now, what is mostly important about today is what you as young people, including myself, are going to get is takeaway from today. So for us to feel comfortable and have a pleasant engagement, we must have a formal welcoming. Allow me to call her the stage. She used to be a teacher by profession until politics absorbed her. But still, even in her work, she's not forgotten that she's a teacher by profession. Well, let me welcome the Deputy Mayor of EThekwini Municipality, Mamzandile. So before she comes and speaks, you've just given her showers. I expected rain.
Our last call, our program director, we call her a last call because she is advancing your agenda. Our Honorable Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperative, HE, Alan Boots, the Professor of University of Natal, Dr. Azamokuhle, Mr. Bomusa Zondo, the EThekwini Municipality Chief Strategic Officer, members of the Diplomatic Corps, our colleagues, councillors. I saw Councillor Ungadi, I also saw Councillor Undlovu. If there are other councillors, you are indeed recognized. Business community representatives, the academia, distinguished guests, the members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Allow me to welcome you to this G20 Symposium, which takes place on the Youth Month under the theme Advancing the Youth Inclusion in the G20 Presidency Agenda. On behalf of the Mayor of this city, Councillor Cyril Kaba, and EThekwini Executive Committee, we welcome you all to this meeting. Let me state that today's gathering is not merely a ceremonial event, but it is a call to reflect, reimagine, and recommit to the vital role of young people in shaping the global futures. Therefore, as we commemorate youth during this Youth Month, we are indeed reminded that they are not only the leaders of tomorrow, but you are the innovators, the game changers, and the contributors of today. The voices of young people, the ideas, and lived experience must no longer be seen as parental policy, but it also needs to put as an essential to the legitimacy and activeness into the global governance. This symposium presents us with a unique opportunity to deepen the collaboration across generations and as sectors, ensuring that the aspirations and the agency of young people are not only heard, but they are also meaningful, integrated to the heart of the G20 priorities. We come together not only to commemorate the passion, the innovation and resilience of young people around the world, but to underscore a fundamental truth that no global agenda can be put inclusive without the voice of the young and its core. The G20 as the forum of the world's largest economies poses a very unique power and the responsibility to shape the policies that resonate across the broadest of generation. Therefore, ensuring that the youth participation is not merely symbolic, it is strategic necessity and long overdue. This symposium is more than an event, but it is a call of action, a space where emerging leaders, policymakers, the game changers converge to reimagine how the youth perspective can move from the margins to the mainstream of global decision making. From the climate change to the digital innovation, employment and education, young people are not only affected by these issues, but they are also actively shaping the solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, the inclusive economic growth must be central to our collective ambition. The youth are at the center of changing their life, not for the country and also global. The G20 as the agenda must move beyond economic recovery to foster equitable support and opportunities, to expand the access of finance and ensuring that the fiscal and the social policies are designed with the intergenerational equity in mind. You will also agree with me that when we talk about young people, we are talking about the innovators. The innovators, young people want to be economic active now. Equally, in the era defined by the rapid technological change, digital innovation and education are the essential levels of transformation. The digital divide persist between the urban and the rural youth are well between the genders and across the regions. As we advance the discussions within the G20 framework, we must prioritize equitable access to digital information, equal education, and future-focused skills. Investment in STEM. It is important that when we talk about young people, we say young people, DM, have been called into seminars, into workshops. What they want now is the call of action. As you arrange yourself for discussion, we hope that this engagement is going to afford you an opportunity to learn new things and also an opportunity to say, where do you find yourself in the space of G20? As we begin today's session, I'd like to invite you to listen attentively, speak vigorously, and collaborate intentionally. Let us make this symposium a launchpad for the sustained youth inclusion. You are indeed welcome to this beautiful, lovely, warm city called Durban, EThekwini. I thank you, Program Director.
Please give her another round of applause. Today I got the pleasure of sitting in the holding room, which is something that is very rare in my case, because all of you would know that a holding room is always meant for higher-ups. So when I was sitting in the holding room, the deputy mayor was saying how much they are doing for young people within the city. But there's one critical thing I took out of that discussion. It was that she needs to do more, or the city needs to do more. Now they've done with bursaries, they've done with your student relief, most of you will know, but they now need to give young people more tangibles. I hope that as we start the discussions today, you are all ready when it comes for Q&A to ask the relevant questions as to how we find ourselves involved in G20. Now, when I've looked at the pamphlets that we all have, there's youth empowerment and youth engagement. There's a slides above over there, and there's a conversation below. Kindly look at that. And when you move further down, it has a legacy for the future. And then when you go downwards, it also says a platform for young voices. Now, in my thinking, I'm thinking that it shouldn't be on paper and not implemented practically. Now, when you ask your questions, ask further as, how do I get involved further than this discussion we are having today? So those are the things we are looking at. Now, allow me to also acknowledge China as a country that is present today, Lesotho as a country that is present today, as well as Ethiopia. I am told that they have a delegation that is present today. They are acknowledged, and we will be doing this as we continue with the program. Now, our program is in twofold. The first one is the formal session that I am looking after, and then we have a second session which Ms. Thelma Kyungwane, the moderator for the panel discussion, would be coming to have the panel discussion, and then obviously it will be our Q&A. Now, the Q&A needs you to also be part of it, as you will be asking relevant questions, not just questions, also be able to give direct way forward. Now, I always say this, if you're in an engagement like this, and if you do not say that, no, this is how we should be doing things, and asking a question, then you're definitely not in the right room. Right now, as young people, we need to be focusing and saying, this is how we should be moving forward. Because we've listened, we've absorbed. Now, all the information that we've gathered, it is time to show all the people that we are ready to govern, whether they think we are not ready or we are, but we know that we are. Allow me to read the small brief below. He holds a national diploma in management, a bachelor's degree in technology, business administration. All he obtained in the University of Cape Town, CPUT. He also holds a postgraduate diploma in public and development management, and is currently reading towards his master's in the University of Wits University. He then worked full-time for the African National Congress, Northern Cape, as a provincial head of policy. He analyzed and did research for 10 years, from 1999 to 2009. Oh, that's a long time. He served as an ANC Youth League Provincial Treasurer, Provincial Chairperson, and as well as on the National Executive Committee between year 2003 and 2009. He also served in the ANC Provincial Executive Committee and as the Deputy Secretary. This was in 2003 and 2017. He was a member of the Northern Cape Provincial Legislature from 2009 to 2018. During this period, he was also appointed as a member of the Executive Council, which he became the MEC in the Northern Cape Province. He served in the cabinet in the following portfolios: MEC for Social Development in April 2009 to June 2013, served as the MEC for Corporate Governance, Human Settlements and Traditional Affairs, which is COGTA, but has the Traditional Affairs and other things added to it, from June 2013, February 2018. In the month of February 2018, he became a member of the National Assembly MP and served as a member of the Portfolio Committee of Basic Education. So him and the Deputy Mayor of EThekwini are linked somehow. He served in water and sanitation, alternated between and sport and recreation. He also serves as the member of the ANC National Executive Committee. In May 2019, he was appointed by President Cyril Ramaphosa as the Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. In May 2024, after 2024 general elections, I almost said 2014, he was reappointed by the President to the same portfolio as the Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. I know he's rushing to get to the stage, but he's going to allow me to finish. Now, with this entire experience, it tells you that him leading the G20 and this symposium today is relevant and giving us young people what we deserve. I am told that he's 51 years of age, but he does not look that old. To me, he looks 21. Allow me to welcome Honorable Albert.
Program Director. The last ones are always full of ill discipline. The families is the same. Thank you very much for that. Mam Zandile Minyene, the Executive Deputy Mayor of EThekwini Municipality, with the entirety of the MECO members and councillors of EThekwini Municipality being present here, and then our lead representatives from the South African Foreign Service, led by Mr. Ben Hubert from Branch Global Governance, the Consul General of the Kingdom of Lesotho, Kilodu Modise, the Consul General of the People's Republic of China, Nihao, the Consul General of India, Suprabhat, other members of the diplomatic community, our panelists today, Professor Gobal, Professor Bandwa, Dr. Zwani, Dr. Golden, and Mr. Zondo, and importantly, student and young leaders present here today. Let me greet you and firstly congratulate you, Deputy Mayor, for staging a very successful 98 Comrades Marathon in Zone. congratulate, of course, the South African Tijani for revenging the defeat he experienced last year, inflicted by Wiersma. Remember last year he was defeated, but it's over, he revenged his defeat. And obviously, ladies and gentlemen, for Gerda Steyn, a multiple defending champion, who finished 15th overall. So Gucci, out of the more than 22,000 comrades marathon athletes, Gerda Steyn as a woman in a week's time we are celebrating 16 June 1976, where our young people rose to the occasion and once again they honor and fulfill their generational mission by ensuring that the transformation trajectory, the livelihood and the ambition of the oppressed people becomes a matter that found international recognition. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, the important issue for us is that as we celebrate the lives of Peter Mokaba and of the gallant young fighters of 1976, we must also be conscious that on the 26th of June, we are celebrating 70 years of the Freedom Charter. Now the Freedom Charter, ladies and gentlemen, it's a value proposition of us as South African people to the rest of our countrymen and women and to the rest of the world. you would recall that South Africa, unlike many other countries, is a very unique proposition where the oppressed and the oppressor are cohabitating. It's a very unique position. But that position, and ladies and gentlemen, found its prominence from the Freedom Charter of 26 June 1955, where it stated that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, both black and white, isn't it so? So I want to also use this occasion to debunk the myth that says there's not a space in South Africa for every single one of us, including the Afrikaners. There's a space for the Afrikaners, and it is our ambition in South Africa that the majority of our people, including those vulnerable groups, sections of our communities, have a place in South Africa. So I thought it's important to make that point. And I'm saying so, ladies and gentlemen, because a truth often being told without being debuffed becomes the reality, isn't it so? Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, the important issue, and I thought the program director would introduce me as follows, and not read something that sounded like an obituary. That thing is sounded like an obituary. The first thing, what the program director was supposed to say, is that I'm responsible in particular for global governance issues in the Department of International Relations. But importantly, ladies and gentlemen, when we introduce the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, we must be able to indicate that our foreign policy is premised on what we call 4 concentric circles, which is independent, interrelated. And that is the circle of Pan-Africanism, because I think South Africans more than ever need to appreciate our dialectical relationship with the other 54 African states. It needs to appreciate that we are first and foremost an African state. We are first and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, part of the developing South. And that's why when we speak about South-to-South solidarity, we speak about the fact that there's unity of purpose between ourselves and the rural countries, the group of Latin America, the Caribbeans, because of the diaspora that finds its existence in those countries. That there's global solidarity with the oppressed people of the world. So that when South Africa speaks about the plight and on the need for self-determination of the people of Palestine, it's located within that policy perspective when we speak about global solidarity. And thirdly, ladies and gentlemen, and this is a contemporary issue, our third concentric circle speaks about the need to deepen cooperation with your more industrialized economies. So when you see that President Cyril Ramaphosa and the leadership of Minister Ronald Lamola went to have engagement at the White House, it is not for us to become subordinate to decisions taken by the USA, but it's to build on this very important concentric circle. It says we need to deepen relations with the more industrialized economies. And we can't take it away, ladies and gentlemen, that South Africa's industrialization, so when you speak about jobs creation, you speak about economic growth, you speak about reducing inequality, and diminishing poverty. Part of our industrialization historically has been because of the G7 nations. And in the G7 nations, the United States of America, it's a key interlocutor for us to be able to deepen our relationship. So when you see here the port of Durban, and you see the economic injections in Mocha, in the SEZ, in Eastern Cape, it has been because of how South Africa has been able to industrialize, do automobiles, do value addition products, and then export it to your developed economies. And that's why it's important that when we engage in geopolitics, it's important to understand the role of the US as a particular hegemon within the world balance of power. So I thought I must raise it up front because I know there's some intellectuals here that will obviously engage in that issue. And then the fourth concentric circle, ladies and gentlemen, is what actually brought us to converge here today. It speaks about the centrality of the transformation and participation in global governance institutions and the deepening of multilateralism in that regard. So today's debate, to a large extent, speaks about the G20, which in essence, ladies and gentlemen, deals with the global financial and economic architecture. So that's one component of the our trajectory when we speak about global governance. But global governance have a range of institutions, obviously the primary institution being the United Nations, and where all 193 states of the UN finds converging in. But when South Africa, for example, feels aggrieved on the conduct of any particular state, your key moderator of that grievance in a multilateral forum becomes then, for example, the International Court of Justice, your ICJ, isn't it so? So when we were aggrieved because of the conduct of the Israeli state as it relates to the genocidal conduct it engaged with in terms of the Palestinian people, and in particular in Gaza, we had to then take our grievance using the ICJ. And further on, when we felt further hurt, ladies and gentlemen, we then said the International Criminal Court is the key catalyst to bring about individual conduct, to characterize individual conduct, and to bring individual leaders, whether heads of states, whether heads of government, whether other prominent non-state actors, to account. And that's why we ourselves, for example, have been part of the Rome Statute to bring the conduct of the Prime Minister of Israel to the International Criminal Court. So those are some of the other issues that obviously institutions of global governance deal with, including health diplomacy. If you look at WHO, your World Health Organization, the WTO through the Doha roundtable engagements to ensure there's a more fairer and a better trading system, etc. So the last one was supposed to introduce me like that. Sisonke. Because that is in essence why we are here today. But I think, ladies and gentlemen, the first issue, South Africa are part of the G20, and it's the only African state to be part of the G20. And it's important for a number of reasons, given the fact that G20 has been established to moderate the difficulties that the industrialized economies have experienced through the collapse of the world financial and economic markets in as early as 1998. But it also seeks, ladies and gentlemen, to have a better and a fair value proposition, not only for members of the G20, but also for your developing economies. And it's for that reason that we are elated, obviously, that we have taken over from Brazil the chairpersonship, the presidency of the G20. Now, you would recall that we are the last of the developing cohort that are assuming the presidency of the G20, having India played its presidential role, Indonesia have played its presidential role, and Brazil. Now, in the troika of the G20, ladies and gentlemen, is South Africa as the current president, it's Brazil as our immediate predecessor, and it's the United States of America that are supposed to take over our presidency. So when you see President Ramaphosa engage in what I characterize as diplomatic finesse, is to ensure that our G20 presidency, but also the G20 presidency of your developing nations, obviously carries forward to the developed economies in a very seamless manner. And that's why the emphasis is that ordinarily we would want to see President Trump in South Africa in November, when the leaders are convening under the tutelage of your leadership summit. Because of the fact, ladies and gentlemen, that the US are the biggest economy, you know that, isn't it so? In terms of world economy, constitute around what, 26 to 28%. So it's an important catalyst for making sure that it plays its role to ensure that your less developed economies and your developing economies obviously are able to grow. So that is the first issue. Our team, ladies and gentlemen, speaks about solidarity, equality, and sustainability. And that is important because what we do as a catalyst for your developing economies, our team was structured in such a manner, ladies and gentlemen, that we say that we are in solidarity with your, in particular, your less developed countries. Now, you would recall, we have approximately 46 less developed countries, LDCs, and 43 of those find themselves within sub-Saharan Africa. So when we speak about what is the plight of your highly indebted, less developed countries, what is the consequence of highly indebted nations, in particular those that are less developed, we then impose a particular obligation on the G20, not only to lead themselves, but to moderate the economic and financial difficulties that those that are less developed have to experience. And then obviously, ladies and gentlemen, when we look at our thematic approaches relates to equality, now there's a very important issue about equality. In fact, this theme of equality and sustainability have a very unique dialectical relations. When we look at equality, we say no. If you take something like critical mineral strategy, one of the difficulties that we are faced with as Africa is that there's the issue of climate change, isn't it so? So we have our UNFCCC commitments. So every year you hear we attend COP 29, 28, 27, the conference of the parties. In there we do what we call nationally determined contributions of how the levels of decarbonization that we are engaging on. The consequence of that, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at renewable energy as a key obligation for all member states like South Africa and the rest of Africa, your major minerals, what we call critical minerals, for renewable, for electric vehicles, is found in Africa. It's found in Africa. You understand it? So when you look next time on the conflicts that we are experiencing in Africa, there is one key denominator. One key denominator of conflicts in Africa. It's called political economy. So if you look at northern Mozambique, Cabo Delgado, there was a discovery of LNG, isn't it, in your gas deposits? So before there was a discovery of gas deposits, there was no insurgency. The moment the Mozambican government discovered gas deposits, there was then suddenly an Islamic insurgency. If you look at the Great Lakes region, in particular, the difficulties that the DRC has experienced, one of our difficulties is that the DRC has an array of critical minerals that are supposed to fuel and advance the issues of renewable energy, isn't it so? But it cannot be correct, ladies and gentlemen, that a country are conflict-ridden because of one reason. Because of the role that critical minerals has played in its conflict. So when students of international relations such as yourselves, and political science, etc., and economists, it's important to understand the role of political economy in our well-being in Africa. So I thought I must link that so that you understand the importance about sustainability, but also how it relates to the issues about equality. But important, ladies and gentlemen, we have what we call three high-level deliverables. In English, we say the priorities. It speaks about the need to have inclusive growth and industrialization, employment, and the reduction of inequality. Secondly, it speaks about the importance and significance of making sure that we are able to moderate the difficulties of climate change as it relates to food security are concerned. And thirdly, it speaks about the need to harness what we call artificial intelligence and the broader technological innovation for sustainable development. This encapsulates, ladies and gentlemen, the consequence matters that we are experiencing, both in KZN, in South Africa and Africa, on what we call disaster resilience, and a very important issue about what we call your debt relief architecture. And we do that, ladies and gentlemen, to ensure that your climate vulnerable countries and those countries that are highly indebted are not forced to choose between their obligations to Bretton Woods institutions such as your IMF and your World Bank and other concomitant obligations to the Paris Financing Club, and the objective reality of serving the people and saving lives. And I'm raising this point because in 2020, that was 5 years back, we had the COVID-19 transnational pandemic, isn't it so? South Africa was part of the countries, and in particular with India, where we put forward a proposal to the WTO to ensure there must be a temporary waiver of your productive rights, your intellectual property rights, for the manufacturing of vaccine during the time of a crisis such as COVID-19. We did that using the WTO, and then we were very successful with our partners, including the PRC, to negotiate the issuing of special drawing rights from the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. The difficulty that we experienced, ladies and gentlemen, with that special drawing rights, we made a substantive argument for your less developed countries, your developing economies. And because of the decisions that was taken at that specific time, even by the IMF, it also then benefited. It benefited, a number of your highly developed economies. So it's an antithesis in terms of what we wanted as South Africa, that your IMF, your World Bank, should be a bridge between the haves and the haves-not. Yabona. So when you look at G20, look at the consequence of what it does in terms of financial symmetry, which is the repository at the disposal of the IMF. You look at the World Bank and other subordinate organizations, and how our G20 presidency must then be able to turn the things around. The issues, ladies and gentlemen, what you must know is that part of our agenda is we are going to advance very hard the issues about sustainable development to meet the SDGs. Sustainable development to meet the SDGs. So we do that because we have a unique responsibility as South Africa to be the champion of the global South. That is how we see ourselves. We are the champion of the global South. That is our ambition. Where there is injustice, you must have South Africa. Where there is the downtrodden, there is South Africa. So I thought I must raise that. But obviously, ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude my initial presentation to you, there is, in Africa, there is what we call a democratic dividend. They call it, and you'll find out from the experts here, they call it a democratic dividend. Now, the African democratic dividend also finds expression in Mzansi. It speaks about the fact that if you look at your democratic pyramid, unlike a country, for example, like Japan, Japan has an aging population, ladies and gentlemen, to such an extent that the retirement age was a big debate over the past years in Japan. We don't have the number of workforce to be able to drive the economic trajectory in Japan. And there was a big debate on making sure they increase your retirement age. In South Africa, our biggest political dividend is young people. Isn't it so? But I hope there's students here that study political science. I hope there is. Because there's what you call, in political science, there's 3 laws of dialectics, but there's one that should interest you. It speaks about unity of opposites. That for every positive, there's a negative. Isn't it so? Yes. So, in as much as during this celebration of June month, where we honor Peter Mokaba, Hector Peterson, our biggest repository that we are having is young people. But if you don't adequately skill young people, so that the skills that they inherit from higher education institutions, that skill is reconcilable with the type of economic mainstreams that we must engage on, then Kimatata Fera will have big problems in this country. And it's no surprise, ladies and gentlemen, that we need to then, as South Africa, work very hard with our partners. And I'm very happy for the consulates. I got some roving reports from the way the consulates are engaged with EThekwini and KwaZulu-Natal. Because they look at what is the skills that are required and what type of sectors the bursary fund from Executive Mayor of EThekwini, Ubaba Cyril Naba, it must be able to fund.
Now logic tells you, ladies and gentlemen, that KZN is the central point for port industry, isn't it so? So young people should therefore be encouraged to study transport economics. In KZN, when you study anything, you study transport economics. You study transport economics as one example. There is no possibility, Deputy Mayor, there's no possibility that you will remain unemployed. No makanja, it's not possible because of the port, isn't it so? And I'm making it as one of the examples so that you understand that your role and your responsibility as a young person is to make sure that when you now go and major in a particular field, look at what is the economic downstreaming of KZN, and you must then be able to reconcile the economic sectors of development of KZN with what you will be studying. If we're going to continue to study courses that is not relevant to the economy, there will be an economic crisis. And that crisis will find expression through youth unemployment. So I'm elated, Deputy Mayor, to thank you for your foresight. You brought us more than 600 million rand in Izolo. It says there's political foresight, isn't it so? Because this leadership of EThekwini Municipality is working with the comrades marathon organizers. So the offsprings, it doesn't come to them. It goes back in the KZN economy. And that says there must be foresight. But in as much as we have political foresight of the political leadership of EThekwini, what we are interested in Namslanje is to understand what is the foresight of our young people here. Ukuthi, what we see in government, is it what you see? Isn't it so? Because if what you see in government and what needs to be done is reconcilable with what we are seeing, it means Nugomso will be better than today. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Kindly give him another round of applause. Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. When he was speaking, I got thinking about the transport economy, and because I am from KwaZulu-Natal, I started thinking about taxes, how much money I'll be making, until my thinking cap rechanged and I started looking at the port. Because the first thing you think about, especially if you grew up in a township, when you think of transport, the first thing that is going to make you cash fast would be a taxi, and we all know that, and we all lived through that experience. But I like what you said about transport economy, and Deputy Mayor, I was thinking that we don't have bursaries focusing on that as the municipality. Maybe it's high time we should also look at focusing in that aspect. And part of being here today, as I was saying, because we're getting to the most important part, which is the panel. I'm now going to exit the stage. Ms. Thelma Hlongwane is going to come as the moderator, as well as with her panelist. Now, I'm going to give a couple of instructions. The panel members will be entering from this end, not on this side. When they come, they'll come on that rim up to the stage when Ms. Thelma calls them to the stage. What now becomes your important case as young people, because I'm exempted from participating, and I'm relying on you to make sure that when it comes to our Q&A, we give strategic direction as to what we see as beneficiation of the G20. we must have an understanding that the G20 has many subgroups, if I may call them. There's the Y20, there's the W20, which is the woman, there's Labour 20, there's many 20s if you check the G20 that focus, but ours is the Y20. But beyond the Y20, there's the bigger one, the G20, which should be giving us as young people enough beneficiation. There's been many relations that our government has formed with many countries. We've been taught diplomacy, but has those relations worked for us as young people of South Africa in terms of beneficiation? Last year, or the year before that, Mr. Zondo will correct me, as EThekwini we hosted BRICS. They came for many days. The only country that I'm sure is giving us some sort of knowledge and beneficiation is China, because we are starting to learn far more technological advancement. But what are we benefiting from other countries, just not them coming to South Africa, EThekwini in particular? Now, as young people of EThekwini, we must have tangibles. When they come to us, we must have something that we would have learned that would give us time to make sure that even in our own corners, even in the families, what won the deepest ruler, we are able to say, when BRICS came to EThekwini, this is what we benefited, and we have the knowledge of doing this. Allow me to call on stage Ms. Thelma Thongwani, the moderator for the panel discussion. As she comes on stage, she will then be able to elaborate on her panel, and then the panel will come from this side as they need to have their mics assembled and turned on. Kindly give her a round of applause as she comes on stage.
I so wish I could have an obituary like the Deputy Minister, but I have nothing to share, so she can't read anything like she did with UDM. Excellencies, you will pardon me, I'm not used to speaking before the people. I speak behind the mic in the studio, confined by myself. My name is Thelma Thongwani. I'm a host of The Diplomat on Ubuntu Radio. Ubuntu is part of the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. So please pardon me if I don't acknowledge some of the dignitaries. Deputy Mayor, my Deputy Minister, my boss, when you were greeting here, you were using some languages that I don't understand, and it reminded me of the time I first got into contact with people from other countries. It was in 2010, during the World Cup. I was working in Polokwane, so you know Polokwane is dominated by Tsonga speaking, Pedi speaking, and Venda speaking. So I am Tsonga, I'm from Guyana. Majority of you would know Penny Penny, who made popular the song Chichangane Ishilungu. He said hello say in English, and in Xitsonga is I lo sing. So we're having a debate with a colleague who is Spanish speaking. I was like, Chichangane Ishilungu. And he said, Sipedi, kisi China. And I told him, prove it. He said to me, he says, France, Ofeiti form 4, high 4. So we're saying it in Chinese. We say, Hong, Ofeiti Hong Hong high Hong. So I lost the battle. I am not here to do that. I'm here to moderate a panel which is going to obviously have a discussion around the inclusion of youth in the G20 summit. So let me invite on stage our panelists. Obviously, I'm not going to invite them based on their seniority, but I will read through the obituaries, as the Deputy Minister said it. My first panelist for the day is Professor Namala Devi Gopal. She is a distinguished scholar and educator with an esteemed career spanning over 40 years in the basic and higher education sectors. Currently, she is serving as the head of the Department of Criminology and Forensic Studies at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, where she has been instrumental in shaping the field through her dedication to research, teaching, and academic leadership. She has actively engaged in the NIHSS-SA-BTT with commitment and integrity, during which she broadened her academic research profile by integrating discussions pertinent to the Global South, particularly regarding poverty and various forms of discrimination and the digital divide, which influences the cycle of economic poverty. Beyond her departmental leadership, Professor Gopal was the acting director of teaching and learning within the College of Humanities. Her extensive contribution to higher education reflects her commitment to student-centered learning, fostering critical inquiry and inspiring the next generation of criminologists and students generally. Professor Gopal is a prolific researcher who has authored numerous scholarly works on criminology, forensic studies, and social justice. Her research interest encompasses crime and justice in South Africa, school and gender-based violence, international peace and security, illicit drug use and cybercrime, contributing to policy discussions and reform efforts in the critical areas. So you also don't want me to go through this obituary. Give her a round of applause. Thank you so much, Prof. Our next panelist is known as Professor Zamokuhle Mbandwa. He is an associate professor in the Department of Public Management and Economics at the Durban University of Technology. With a PhD in public administration, Professor Mbandwa has made significant scholarly contributions, including the publication of 4 books, 3 book chapters, and 62 peer-reviewed journal articles. Notably, the IGI Global Scientific Publications has played a key role in supporting and facilitating the publication of his books, enhancing global accessibility to his academic work. Currently supervises master's and doctoral candidates across the Faculty of Management Sciences and Faculty of Accounting and Informatics. He is already here. You may give him a round of applause. Our next panelist is a representative of the youth. Her name is Dr. Lusanda Kanyazwani. She is a medical doctor and a social justice advocate with a strong foundation in both criminal practice and community activism. She obtained her MB-CHB degree from the University of KwaZulu-Natal in 2021 and currently serves as a medical officer with experience spanning both public and private healthcare sectors in KwaZulu-Natal. Her clinical work, especially in underserved communities, has deepened the commitment to health equity and its broader economic and societal implications. Beyond her medical practice, Dr. Zwani is actively involved in professional and political spaces that promote inclusivity and empowerment. Let's give a round of applause. Our next panelist is Mr. Omusa Zondo, who is a Chief Strategy Officer at EThekwini Municipality. He is responsible for the Office of Strategic Management within the EThekwini Municipality at the City of Durban. He joined the municipality in 2009 after working in national and provincial government at the middle and senior management on programs meant to advance service delivery in cities and local governments. He has led the municipality review of the long-term development framework through Imagine Durban project, which was implemented in partnership with 35 global cities under the guidance and support of Sustainable Cities International. Let's also give him a round of applause. And our last panelist for today is Dr. Vasu Masuqondele. He is the founder and executive director of the African Center for Constructive Resolution and Dispute, ACCORD in short, which he founded in 1992. It is today a globally recognized conflict management institute, and it has been rated by Pennsylvania University annual think tank, ranking up to top 100 think tanks globally for 11 consecutive years. Let's give him a round. I am going to take a seat next to Dr. Gopal. As I've already indicated that I am a radio presenter, so majority of the time my work is scripted. I don't only speak. Deputy Minister was saying when we were at the briefing meeting that what he is going to speak there, he is told what to say, so I am also told what to say. I'm going to give an opportunity to each one of you just to give us your perspectives from your various areas of operation. Why is it so critical to include youth participation in addressing global challenges within the G20 framework? I'll start with
Thank you so much.
yeah, the mic is on.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Minister for allowing us to be here today. Also, thanks to the leadership of the municipality, the mayor of the city. I know if I were to count each and every one of you who are here today, especially our English guests here, it will take a lot of time.
Yeah, so
I will just go straight to my discussion, which I think is not going to be a very long discussion. But I think it's also very important for us to recognize that young people in South Africa, at some point, do not stand up for themselves. And I think at this point, this opportunity that is offered by the Minister and the city of EThekwini is the opportunity for young people to stand up for themselves and do what I think is right for them and for the future of this country. I'm saying this primarily because G20 is not popular in South Africa, and particularly in Ghana, especially a country that is holding the presidency of G20. We should be celebrating that. That should be in our social media platforms and everywhere in society. Like how we used to celebrate the FIFA World Cup. But this one now is not popularly celebrated by young people in the nation, not just young people, but the people of South Africa. If you speak about G20, if you ask about G20 communities in townships, just a few people can be able to articulate what is G20 and what is the presidency of G20 and what does this hold or bring to us as South Africa. So I think for us this is very productive. But when we focus on the youth, which is, I think the program director clearly indicated that there are so many whys, which is Y20 in the spectrum of G20. This platform represents the interest of young South Africans on global issues, such as issues of the economic growth, climate change, digital innovation, and education. I like the fact that the Minister spoke about the studies of logistics and transportation, which is something that I think our universities within the province of KwaZulu-Natal are not prioritizing fully that area of logistics and issue of transportation. And I think we're also taking a cue to what the Minister is saying today, myself and from Telegram, to say maybe going back to our universities, we need to advance this agenda that has been presented by the Minister to say, how at what extent are we prioritizing the issue of transportation and logistics in the province of KwaZulu-Natal? That's the area where the economy is mostly taking place. And this also amplifies beyond national borders, ensuring there's a global decision that reflect priorities and challenges of young people are actually taken into account. And I know that people of Durban in particular, EThekwini, they are very reserved when it's time to go to other countries or to go to other provinces. I think it's high time now we look for opportunities beyond South Africa. And this platform should be a platform where the opportunities that are available are taken into account so that the young people can explore and also can expand their knowledge. Now, however, young empowerment through the G20 must go beyond symbolic gestures of just talking, like what we are doing today. It shouldn't be about discussions, panel discussions, engagements, but it must go beyond that to see how the outcomes of this platform are being implemented. And we must also not wait for 10 years, 15 years to see the outcome or the implications of these discussions presented by us here and the Deputy Minister. It should translate into actionable policies. We need to have policies that can be implemented, not just to have policies in our shares, offices, but the policies that can be implemented and put into action. And we must also look at how funding for youth-led initiatives and structured participation in decision-making processes are implemented. Subsequently, this summit or the Y20 engagement must be leveraged to ensure that South African youth are not only present but influential. So, young people, I'm glad that this platform is not just for us, the Deputy Minister and the leadership of EThekwini, but this is your platform, whereby you'll also be allowed to engage. And I don't think there's anyone in the world that's not everything. So we learn from each other, and we must also take views from each other so that we can always grow. And I think Franz Fanon clearly stipulated the issue of learning. And he said people must learn, and learn. So learning is a lifetime activity. It does not come to an end. In South Africa, the awareness and engagement with G20 remains limited among many young people. So as I indicated earlier on, many young people don't know about G20. I don't know whether they are reluctant or they just don't feel that G20 speaks to them, which I think at this point, the Deputy Minister is here to emphasize the fact that G20 belongs to you as young people, not just the management or the leadership of the government. Therefore, we have a responsibility to increase the relevance and essential of this presidency of G20. So we need to also have a look at how the media, social media, is actually looking at how the G20 is a platform for young people in South Africa to advance issues of economic growth, economic development, and all other areas that have been presented by this opportunity. And finally, G20 engagement should foster partnerships with the private sector, collaborations in entrepreneurship skills development, and innovation hubs. I know there are so many things that have been made by the government in terms of introducing entrepreneurship, innovation hubs, but the issue now is the accessibility. Are young people able to access these platforms? And we must also get rid of the red tapes. The processes that are there sometimes are actually not allowing young people to be innovative, to be creative, because there is a standard procedure and platforms that are created for young people. So we need to have a high level of flexibility to allow young people to have access to the economy. And as the Deputy Minister indicated earlier on, in South Africa we have a problem of young people who are not economically active. They say they not economically active, not in the higher education institutions. They are just sitting and not doing anything because even their ideas are not being assisted by those who are in the leadership positions. And I think this will be able to address the issue of youth unemployment and also promote inclusive economic participation. So the economic participation should not be only addressed by political parties who prioritize their own affiliates or people who are supporting their political agendas or political ideas. So when we talk about the issue of the economic empowerment, economic inclusiveness, it should be able to be accessible to people from rural communities, urban communities, everywhere, regardless of their skin color, gender, or even the issues of popular political preference. In conclusion, the G20 holds significant potential for South African youth, but realizing these opportunities require meaningful engagements, widespread awareness, and strong partnerships across sectors. So it shouldn't only be the responsibility of the municipality or the political leadership or the government for that matter to address this issue of G20 and the president of the G20. The business sector must also play a role to educate people, especially young people, about the influence of G20 or the president of the G20 in the economy of the country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, When you did the preamble, you indicated the issue of awareness amongst our people with regards to G20, unlike the World Cup in comparison. I'm beginning to wonder what is it that is being done wrongly or that is not being done in order for people to become aware of this event and its significance. Our program director highlighted that we'll have an opportunity to ask questions, so I'm not going to wait until the end. I will be giving you an opportunity to raise questions. Maybe it's something to think about. Why are we not aware of the G20 summit? My technical guys, please make sure that we have mics, roving mics that can be given to our audience to share. This one. Okay, all right. Let me give an opportunity to Dr. Gopal to give us a preamble with regards to this topic.
You have a map already. I'm not usually so privileged. Universities don't have this kind of privilege. So let me start by greeting everyone. And of course, congratulating our Deputy Minister in successfully completing the Commonwealth Marathon yesterday. I think that's an excellent role model for our youth. I want to also take the opportunity to greet a very influential and important President Lady, our Deputy Mayor. Following dignitaries, our very able team from the Deputy Minister's office, my fellow candidates, all protocols observed. So I was just thinking, as I was listening to both the Deputy Minister earlier, as well as our first panelist, and of course I had somewhat of a presentation that I thought I could lean back on. But having taught for almost 40 years, I usually take my cue from the audience. And today, the most important people whom I greet with the utmost respect is you, the youth of South Africa. Let's give a huge round of applause to you, the audience. So usually when I speak to younger people, I always enjoy the fact that I can disrupt your thinking. Usually I ask, are you comfortable with where you are sitting? And if you are not comfortable, which I think most of us are not, then make a move. Shift your position. And I think in order to shift your position, it's absolutely critical that we shift the way in which we think. I heard our moderator speak about, or ask a question, what should we do to make G20 more visible to our youth? And the counter question I would ask is, how did our youth engage as extensively as they did with FIFA 2010? I don't necessarily believe it was the outside world that took the information and interest to our FIFA 2010. I necessarily believe it information and interest. Our youth who stepped out of their comfort zones and accessed the information that they were interested in. And so in a similar vein, I think it's absolutely critical that we ask ourselves, what can we do for ourselves to become part of the bigger participation and engagement that G20 offers to us? What is my personal interest in finding out how I can leverage the successes of G20? Of course, G20 from a domestic space, in as far as South Africa is concerned. For example, the fact that we brought G20 to South Africa, but also how do I expand that influence, or how do I expand what I am interested in into the global stage and the global space? But I think in order to do that, it's absolutely critical that we understand what G20 actually stands for. What does it mean? What does it have to offer me, not just in the future, but now? Because we say second jalo. The time is now. How do I leverage it now? Because with you, the youth, the future, yes, you are part of the future, but more critically, you are part of the present. And G20 is not some abstract phenomenon that just the Deputy Minister and his team deal with or engage with. It's something, it's a phenomenon, it's a concept that every one of you should be engaging with at this point in time. I'm reminded of a slogan that we learned many years ago, and the slogan was, or is, teach a person how to fish and feed that person give a person a fish and feed the person for today. But teach him or her how to fish and you feed them for a lifetime. And I think that slogan is equally relevant today as it was in the days when I was growing up. For example, the Deputy Minister mentioned 1976. It was the youth that catalyzed the change that we're experiencing now. So that kind of power and influence resides in our youth. For example, how often and how extensively do our youth engage with Y20, which is part of, as we heard earlier, G20? That's a platform where our youth can actually have their voices heard, because hearing your voice is just so critical to the way in which we make decisions for the present as well as for the future. We have technology. Every one of us is walking around with a phone. We use those phones to listen to what I would say to my students, to some kind of gossip and schlebbering, right? Why don't we use that platform to influence, for example, job opportunities, to influence the way in which we understand how crime is committed, and how can we influence the narrative differently so that we don't have another Trump and our president kind of situation where we were told that G20 is coming to South Africa, and how are you going to manage how would your guests feel safe in South Africa? That safety lies in our hands. You have the power of technology. You have the power of innovation. The next issue that I want to quickly touch on, and it's something that's very close to the Deputy Minister's heart, and I know this because we had a conversation last year, the whole idea of climate change. Climate change is real, and the Deputy Minister last year said, KwaZulu-Natal is experiencing climates or climatic conditions that we've never experienced before. It's important that we begin to engage with that. We talk about indigenous knowledge systems. We are rich in terms of indigenous knowledge systems. How do we use that information to influence what and how climate change actually happens, both in our province, in KwaZulu-Natal, nationally, but internationally as well. The last point, how do you use your information, your knowledge, which you are absolutely rich in, to influence the informal economies in KwaZulu-Natal as well as in the country as well? You know, I remember the last one saying they focused on, one of her foci was the taxi industry. And then when she heard the Deputy Minister talk about the ports, maritime, and transport, it suddenly made her realize that there is an alternate method or mode to actually catalyze some kind of economy, whether it's formal or informal. Did we need the Deputy Minister to come here today to tell us that and bring us to that realization? I think we have the power, you have the power within you to make those associations. Thank you very much.
And I love the fact that our program director catches very fast. She's got her idea. Let me move on to Mr. Zondo. Mr. Zondo, what are some of the strategies that EThekwini Municipality is employing in terms of mobilizing economic development, employment, which is targeted at youth?
Thank you very much. I shall say all protocol observed as it were. I think the maybe before I just deal with that directly, I thought Prof you would say each one teach one when you talk about the fish, because that's what the youth will hear the most. There are about 4 priorities of the G20 to speak directly to youth. Because we are in the city of EThekwini, we look at climate change, and I'll then look at digital innovation, as it were. The focus in EThekwini has been in manufacturing, which is our strongest point currently. And comparatively, maybe the youth and leadership will know that in the last quarter of 2024, we created about 62,000 jobs on manufacturing. Of course, in the first quarter of 2025, we lost. Now we are now at 2022. Of course, not like all other metros, but we did lose a lot of jobs, even in that particular sector. And manufacturing is broadest sense. Whether we're talking clothing, auto industry, and anything else that we do in here. So if you look at our support, then we are focusing on manufacturing as it were, as an industry, and we are supporting youth across the spectrum in that regard, and not only in para spaces. I'll give an example in Wamaj, where the youth working with waste, supported by EThekwini, are doing papers using rubber that is being thrown all over the place, as it were. We collect it, and then we are using the rubber for the shoes, the tires equally, and it's a youth that lead that. Then you go on, the Deputy Minister talk about the urbanization. Of course, the Deputy Minister, we as metros, we don't talk about urbanization, but we talk about metropolization, because people are not moving to what to Buza, they are moving to metros at the most. And that is confirmed, these are the metros, and we know the numbers. Now, how do we then ensure that if there's an increased number of people living in EThekwini, food becomes important? Look at the work that the youth are doing under agri-ecology, which focuses on subsistence, one home, one garden, where we are saying, even garden just for your own veggies for now. But we have gone further to say agri-business and processing, where we are investing in chicken farming in the cattle-rich area, and then saying even the qualifications related to soil management, crop management, animal husbandry, and others are the opportunities that we are now supporting in our own bursaries as well in that regard. Then you look at the furniture industry. We are equally working with the youth, and then we've got hubs all over the place. I mean, on furniture, we've got a hub in Nomash, we have in Kumbane, we are opening a hub in Bumbulu, in Ngasenkantolo, to focus, look at the furniture, but in Bumbulu, we are focused on food production first for local consumption. And then we are then supporting through the market in Baywood and say, how do we create spaces where you are able to locally produce food in a sustainable manner without using nitrogen-based fertilizers. Then you can then be able to feed your own family, and market within your own community, and then reinforce other communities around the area, whether it's Mapepeteli, whether it's Kwamashua, whether it's Otongati, whether it's Lamtundenga, Mopelo, and how do we then create the marketplaces where this food could then be sold, and equally using our market here. There is one part I want to close on before I elaborate many on the work that we have done and the number of youth that we have touched through this program. Of course, Deputy Mayor, I will not talk about the space of creating art, which equally is very important for the city. It's a matter of the DM mentioned, the democratic dividend. Of course, we are young at DM, we don't even talk about that. We know it's a foundation for our success, but we talk about the youth dividend. Now, for all of us that you know, there is only one continent of the future in the world, and that's Africa. And why it's so? It's because Africa is the only continent that has got 60% of its total population under the age of 35. Right? Now, I will go down so that maybe it makes sense. In EThekwini, how many of us remember how many we are in EThekwini officially? 10 million? Okay, we are 4.2 million. Right. Now, at 4.2 million, of course, we may be correct, we are closest to about 6 if you take that there are those that are not counted illegally. So, but legally, we are 4.2 million. Now, out of the 4.2 million, we have got 59.2%. How much is that? Please divide. 59 divided by 100 multiplied by 4 million. You say, how many million are those? 2.3 million people living in EThekwini currently under the age of 35. And that's why we need to focus on our opportunities as youth on the sustainability space, dealing with climate change, but equally the opportunities that is brought by urbanization. People need food. How do we design our infrastructure? And we have already said on our hubs in Newlands, in Bumbulu, on food production. Then move further, because we want to produce a scale. We have given in EThekwini currently 580 Wi-Fi spots, and some of you are using it in our libraries, in our youth centers, where of course we have stopped Facebook on that because we are limiting. But if you visit any other site, then we are allowed to, educational sites, where we are able then to say, if we are saying we must produce more food, how do you use AI to manage the spaces where we are producing food? Deputy Minister, I'd like to bring this because it's your work. You have partnered clearly with China within BRICS. Now, BRICS says under the BRICS Council created the BRICS Business Council. Under the council is a BRICS Academy. And in the BRICS Academy is currently having 182 skills programs on quantum computing, artificial intelligence, you name it, robotics. And then one of the universities in the world, which is number 3 in the world, is DUT. And it is certified by BRICS as the only university in South Africa for now. It is accredited to offer those universities. And then in EThekwini, we have already hosted about 7 to about 25 hackathon, not only for the older people, we're doing just one last week. How people, young people, hacking the solution, say, we got a food challenge, we are producing sufficient food, but how do you distribute it so that everybody's got access to nutrition? And then youth are working on that. On transportation minister, DUT working with the Minister of Digital Communication, Communication and Digital Ministry is doing the similar thing every time in October. In June, we're going to be doing the hack in Western Cape because we are a country, of course, we are EThekwini today. But this city is influencing the hackathon for tourism as part of the G20. And then there will be 25 youth members coming from EThekwini to go and compete in that and propose solutions on how we virtually visit our national endowment on ecotourism through using AI and robotics and many other things. I should leave it there for now.
Thank you so much. Let me also highlight that we have in our consul generals from the government of China, Lesotho, and India. I am going to offer them an opportunity later on to also make a contribution towards this discussion. And we also have Mr. Benjamin. He is from the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. He also works within the desk of G20. I'll also give you an opportunity to say something. Let me move to a youth representative. She laughs. So, Doctor, I would like you to maybe talk to challenges that the young people are facing in engaging with the G20 process. Just briefly, in your view, and how we can overcome this.
Thank you so much. I think I'm the only one who is under 35 on the So I think I get to play both sides of getting the opportunity to share my views on what should happen. But equally, I have a really important responsibility to perhaps capture your views and be able to deliver them to the powers that be. I think the first issue, or rather from my perspective and my understanding, or rather let me give a small story to give you where I first engaged or how I first engaged with international relations and what it is. My grandmother used to love to watch the news. At 7 o'clock, she'd watch the news on ENCA, and then at 7:30, she switches to the Rooney News. And if you watch the news, you know they follow the same kind of format. They start with local news, what happened in South Africa, who shot who, you know, it's all very juicy, it's all very gossipy. And then there's a section in the middle that speaks about international relations and the markets and oil and Brazil. That would be the time when my grandmother would send me to make her tea, so that by the time the 7:30 news starts, we're all sitting down and we're all ready to listen. So the reason why I narrate this story is that for many of us and for many of society, we don't really engage with international relations because we just feel like it's the section of the news where we can go to the loo, go make your tea, and come back and sit down so we can hear what happened at the derby and we can hear about sports, you know. So for me, one of my favorite quotes is by an author called Carol Hanisch. And Carol Hanisch says the personal is political. And whenever I speak in places, the most important thing for me is to be able to create an understanding of how everything around you is political, and how your life and the choices that you make, and even the circumstances you find yourself in, are informed by politics. So for you sitting in your corner of society, for a young person outside here right now by Maritzburg Ranch, for the people who take taxis to Pietermaritzburg from Durban, someone's sitting there and they're selling, and they don't know what we're doing here, and what does G20 mean to them, you know? Now, that's where we're at, and I really feel like that's the responsibility that programs such as this have to respond to. I am a medical doctor by profession, but a lot of my friends work in government, be it in the municipality, in local government, and even in provincial and national government. And my biggest challenge with them are all these acronyms in government that make absolutely no sense to me. And we have town halls, and we have municipal engagements, ward committee meetings, and whatnot, and it speaks in acronyms about issues of unemployment, issues of poverty, issues of crime, you know. And how do we then simplify these things to ensure that we actually get community participation? Because we are meant to interact with government through them being our mouthpieces to actually change policy, to change our nervous condition every single day, you know. So there's a significant disconnect that happens, particularly with myself, I don't know about you in the audience, as a young person, from what DIRCO as a department does, what the G20 means to me. And that's, I think, the most important place where we have to start. And I think a simple example I'll make, and it's something that DM spoke of, I'm obviously involved in health, and I was involved in health at the time of the COVID-19 pandemic. I think we were able to see how the outside influences so much what happens on the inside. We felt it on the 21st of March when we were told that a patient who came into the country in Maritzburg has been tested positive for COVID. And we then felt it when we lost the people around us. And whilst we may have not understood what was happening, I think President Ramaphosa explained it very well in Paris in 2023, when he spoke on how an economy behind medicine and how medicine, there's a political economy around medicine, and how access to life-saving initiatives was met with an extreme amount of resistance from the global north. And South Africa now has this really, really amazing opportunity to be a bridge between the global north and the global south, with South Africa being the only country that represents the aspirations, the challenges, and the wishes of all African countries. And what this does is that it creates this incredible opportunity for us as young South Africans to actively be able to advocate for some of the things we would like to see. For me, as a, so I like to call myself a student of political science. I went to KZN to study medicine, but I joined the South African Students' Congress, and I think through there I got a degree in political science. It's just that it was through a different form of baptism. You know, so through there I then began to learn the importance. You know, so through there I then began to learn the importance of taking people through the journey to their solution. Understand why their situations are the way they are. I'm going to use a perhaps inflammatory example, the one of illegal immigration. I think it's something that's topical, and it's something that we need to be able to dissect as young people, because it speaks, again, on international relations. There is a prevailing view that I want to debunk immediately, that if we were to ensure that every single undocumented migrant in the country were to leave, there would be guaranteed jobs for every single South African who was unemployed. There's this myth that exists that if every single undocumented migrant or refugee were to leave, there would be access to healthcare, university for everyone. That there would be money for everyone, you know. And a part of the issue with that is that we then have the wrong solutions for problems that are genuine. We have conversations around the problems that we have without actually solving the cause of the problem. South Africa now has an important role to play in multilateral engagements as a presidency nation in the G20, but equally as a member nation in the AU, a member nation in BRICS, and all the other acronyms that we sometimes forget about, you know, to one, ensure that we are able to ensure regional stability. Because when we are able to work together to be global citizens and to understand that the well-being of someone in Zimbabwe has a direct impact on my well-being. That a prosperous Africa as a whole has a direct impact on you as a South African. And that's what international relations is about. It's about understanding how the world around you impacts you and how you can impact the world around you. And that's not something that's really complicated. And perhaps we've just complicated it too much. And perhaps we'll have an easier discussion when we understand that that's all it is, you know. And so a part of the challenges that we have are global. A part of the challenges that we have are unemployment as young people. And Minister, it would be irresponsible of me as a former of SASCO to not touch on the skills deficit narrative that you raised. So I'm a doctor by profession, and I am in the health sciences. The job that I do is said to be a scarce skill. I think my work is kind of important, in some way. My job involves someone from the time that they're born to the time that they die. But currently, we have a crisis of unemployment of doctors. In fact, we have a current crisis of a huge migration of South African healthcare workers to Canada, to Ireland, to Australia, and to the Middle East. And this is because South Africa does a great job at training and producing world-class healthcare workers with an extremely important understanding of HIV and TB. One of the jokes that I always said is that you could find a fifth-year medical student who could identify TB much better than probably an American infectious disease specialist. So South African healthcare workers represent meat in the global economy of medicine. And as such, you have targeted interventions. Just 3 weeks ago, Ireland was at the ICC, and they go to Durban. So, there is a skills deficit, I agree, but there's also a problem of a big F word that we don't like to use, and that we have to use. And the biggest F word in government, and the biggest F word that is a hindrance to development and skills, is funding. A part of the things that opportunities like this open up is an opportunity to attract funding. Because it is not only important dignitaries from other countries that get to see what it is that South Africa has to offer, but it is also business and investors, and it is also entrepreneurs, and it is also academics and intellectuals from across the world who come into South Africa and contribute with this knowledge that seeks to address the challenges that we are having. And a part of the things that we then have to be able to do inversely is be able to coordinate a clear youth voice. And I hope we'll be able to do that, just as I summarized. I hope that at the end of this, perhaps we'll be able to develop a clear youth manifesto that we pass on to DM, that we pass on to the Deputy Mayor of EThekwini, of what we as young people would like to see advocated for us, in particular at the G20, because the personal is political.
The personal is political, that's the key word. I am told we are out of time, but let me move on to our last contributor here. From a context of conflict resolution and peace building, talk to us about how we can foster a culture of tolerance amongst the youth, and what strategies can be employed to promote social cohesion and reconciliation.
No, thank you very much, moderator. Firstly, I know the country means doctors, but I'm hoping you will go into politics. And I will vote for you. Now, let me say, the Deputy Minister, as you saw from his CV, is a comrade. And last week when he told me he's coming to participate in the comrades, I joked and said, but I hope you don't think it's one of those toy comrade things. This is serious business. And I know him for a while. I can assure you he doesn't walk like that every day. This is just after. But congratulations, really, we're proud of you. I will not do it. So you deserve a good hand. I wish I had the guts and the inspiration. Let me pick up on something. Firstly, why is the G20 important for young people? There used to be a saying, nothing about us without us. Let me repeat it. Nothing about us without us. This G20 is about you, not me. It's about you, the young people. And so you must make sure that you participate fully in the G20. Not on a side event like this. You must insist that your voice is inside the G20. So that's the first point to make. I want to pick up, DM, on something you raised earlier when you talked about Peter Mokaba and you talked about 1955 and the Freedom Charter. Something that many of you know, I'm sure you know since you are at SASCO, that we have a great philosopher, Frantz Fanon, who said that every generation will discover its mission and it will either betray it or fulfill it. Now, it is about generational issues. My father, in 1955, as a member of the South African Communist Party, went to Clifton, what we talked about. And the mission of my father's generation was to give us a vision for the future. And that's what they did when they drafted the Freedom Charter. 30 years after my father went to the Freedom Charter, as the Deputy Minister said, the generation of the 80s, the mission was to make this country ungovernable and to bring the apartheid regime to its knees. In that time, 1985, 30 years later from 1955, in this city, executive deputy mayor, I was the president of the student council at Durban Westfield University. And Professor, you were one of the students there, I remember. They made her blame me if they failed exams because I was the one. They used to say these people in SRC, they have workers, but they're not studying. They just want to go out. But you became a medical doctor, I became a lawyer, so it's not true. But executive deputy mayor, they used to say these people in SRC, they have workers, but they're not studying. They just want to go out. I became a lawyer. Mayor in young people against the South African police and military of the apartheid regime. We were bashed up, we were tortured, we were detained. There is Eric Appelgren there. Eric was part of that generation. Eric knows we were on the streets outside here. That was the mission of our generation. It was to go there, make the country ungovernable. We put our lives on the line. We didn't know whether we would survive or not. Because you had this brutal police force in front of you, the brutal military, but yes, it alleviated and eradicated. You see, my generation, we did something, but we have failed you. Because 40 years later, in this country and across Africa, we have left every single country on this continent on the negative side of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. That's a fact. So your mission as a generation is, how do you turn that around? Because if you don't, we survived in these 40 years, I can assure you. They called me the fixer. Last week, Deputy Minister, I was at that conference you were at, because if you don't, we survived in these 40 years, I can assure you. They called me the fixer. Last week, Deputy Minister, I was at that conference you were. They were introducing me when I was speaking. He's a fixer. Assassin or something. But I mediate in civil wars across Africa. The last 30 years. Deputy Minister knows that. That's what I do. In Sudan, in Burundi, in the DRC, in Somalia, etc. And I can tell you, you do not want this country to go there. You do not want to be in Sudan today. You do not want to be in the Congo today, or in Somalia. Life is not like this. Life is bad. Now, we are at a critical juncture in the world. And we can go that route, or we can go the prosperous route. It's your mission, not mine. This is your mission. You're going to determine, and the G20 is absolutely crucial. It will bring the biggest economies in the world to our shores. We got until November. So start getting active. Start ensuring, Deputy Minister, the government is going to advocate for a youth innovation fund, right, at the G20. I see the Consul General of China. I say, I hope you will support us as China also. We need this youth innovation fund, because this youth innovation fund is something you guys have to access to become creative. We are on the cusp of phenomenal technological developments in the world. The technological developments coming in the next 5 years, not in the next 50 years, will change our existence irreversibly. Irreversibly, with artificial intelligence, all the rest of it coming. Are we going to be marginalized from it? Or are we going to be included in it? This is your mission. How do we get included? Because right now, the trajectory we are on, we are going to be marginalized from it. I tell you, guaranteed, we will be marginalized. So your mission is to put us on a new trajectory to make sure that we can now become part of this new generation. Let me tell you, employment. We said, back 20 years ago, we said Africa has the demographic dividend for the future. In 2050, we will have 1 billion young people in Africa. While China has an aging population and Europe has an aging population, we said that all the manufacturing will come to Africa. It's not true. Because what we didn't factor in was artificial intelligence and robotics. Today, robots will do all that manufacturing in China, in Europe, and elsewhere. So wake up. This is your mission. It's not coming yet. Unless you wake up, stand up, engage in G20 and say, how are we going to do it? And I'll conclude by saying 60% of arable land in the world sits in Africa. 60%. We only use 10%. 70% of Africans are employed in agriculture, but only using 10% of the land. And we are importing $80 billion of food every year. We should be exporting 100 billion. The Consul General of China will come to our office, maybe in 2 weeks we are meeting, because I met your ambassador last week. We talked about a company we are setting up for the whole of Africa called Africa Green Gold, where we are going to ask China to partner with us to produce food in Africa. But not just produce, we want the value chain to remain here so that we create employment. What you are talking about, I listened carefully, is the value chain must remain here. And we don't want small agriculture, we don't want hoes and planting fields. We want large-scale agriculture. So, to conclude, it is nothing about you without you. Remember that. Go in there, participate. To conclude, it is nothing about you without you. Go in there, participate. You are shaping your...
Nothing about us without us. Let me invite the youth who want to contribute. Let me take at least the 3 contributions because time is no longer on our side. May I have the microphone because I'm told we are only using this once. As I ask Mr. Ben Jube to make his way to the podium, just two minutes, Mr. Jube. We have 2 hands this side. Can we have a female voice as well? Where are the ladies? Nothing about you without you. There's another one there.
Okay. Greetings, colleague and panelist, and all protocol observed. My name is Pelele Bemela. I'm born and raised in Lamontville. Also leading at Civil Society, Sports and Culture Provincial. I wanted maybe to, and also within the youth sector as a member. So I wanted to just add on some of the discussion that we alluded before, to say that when we are speaking about G20, we also need to, how does young people relate in terms of participation, where there's a lot of red tapes in between. Let me just make an example. As one of the panelists was speaking about, why does young people not participating in economic activities within EThekwini or provincial, even in national, is still a challenge. When a young person wants to open a company, cannot open a company just in one day. So we have a lot of red tapes. As we speak, within EThekwini, we have a lot of buildings that are not developed, whereby we can actually give young people an opportunity to renovate those buildings and able to create employment within EThekwini. We have youth organization-led that can do wonderful work and able to share this particular experience. But what I will also want to contribute on in terms of we need to have a youth integrated program whereby through the G20 we have a group of young people that were able to go to other countries and learn, and able to come back and replicate what they have been learned, and able to hold our own government accountable to actually assist and not just talk about these kind of opportunities. When we are talking about ocean economy, as we speak, no young person owns a ship, but we have a harbor. No one, even one person as a young person, owns just a deck where the ships stop. So when we are talking about youth participation in terms of the economy, we need to open the economy to the young people, otherwise we have a ticking bomb. As we're speaking, if we can go to the harbor of EThekwini, not even young people are even being employed in that particular sector. And in terms of a lot of red tapes that are there to just create an awareness, to just give young people to able to come and have a space in that particular harbor. Hence, they are here just a few minutes away. Also, when you're talking about robotic 4AR, you are speaking at a DUT level. Why don't you take this particular concept? We have a wonderful concept that we have designed, and we have been trying to engage with the mayor and also the ministers of science to say, why don't you take this particular program and go to the primary level, teach young kids. When I visited Singapore, young kids at a very primary level, they're able to do robotics, they're able to do a lot of things in terms of the IT. As we currently speak, at a grade 7, a young person cannot even write a CV, cannot even understand how to start a cooperative and able to participate in a meaningful way and participate at a very young age. So we want those interventions to happen. The EThekwini Municipality did a very great job in terms of implementing bakeries within the city. But the most critical thing that they've never done correctly is to say, making sure that majority of those bakeries are owned and run by a young person. And also allocate a certain portion for just maybe say, when you're talking about the sustainable development goals within the EThekwini Municipality, there's a goal number 1, we talk about ending poverty and hunger. To end poverty and hunger within EThekwini, if young person have their own bakery and able to supply the soup kitchen, that is part of the sustainability plan. They can create their own jobs, they can create their own opportunities as a young person. In terms of the infrastructure and our facilities, we want to see young people are tackling the health challenges that young people are facing within the facilities, within using the G20. How can we able to use the 4AR through those such intervention? So we want to have such discussion and have enough time to deliberate with such matters and have tangible programs and projects that we can able to say as a municipality, as a national government, as a G20, this is the intervention that we have done. This is what we have done in the next 5 years. We are planting a seed. Nothing without us. Start today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. May I please try and keep it as short as possible. Time has really run out. Thank you.
Greeting everyone. My name is Noma Gurgunson. I am the provincial chairperson for women's sector in the province. Thank you so much for coming to the youth. Although I don't fall in that category, but I run an organization where we empower youth. And so when you said a female must stand, I took the opportunity. Mine is to contribute on the policies. One spoke about policies, and I want to highlight that we need policies on youth skills programs where you must have graduates program. At the moment, we've got so many graduates. It's been a graduation season, but what next? When you talk about youth, where is the youth? The youth is not in the province. The youth is in the district. The youth is in each and every ward of EThekwini Municipality. How does EThekwini Municipality, how does G20, how do we bring it down to the ward level? As my colleague was saying, how do we bring it even to primary school levels? Then coming, because if you talk about G20, not everyone understands what is G20, but you need to take it down to the ward level, to the township level, and explain it to youth in the township. Also, we would love more to see the G20 working with civil society, working with organizations, as we, the government, hands and eyes and legs of delivering the services of youth empowerment. We need to have some strategies, we need to have some policies of how do we bring the skills development in the township, in each and every ward. So if you work with civil society, that's how you will bring this learnership, not just any learnership. Yes, we know there is furniture, we know that is bakery, but not all the youth can do bakery. Why don't you bring AI learnership in the township? Why don't you have some procedures for international relations? We've got youth that are so talented in arts, in sports. You find that they get learnerships or they get opportunity to go overseas to compete with other youth. But you find that because we don't know which door to knock to, they end up losing those opportunities of going overseas because they lack funding. And lastly, please create a G20 youth desk. If I can ask a member of a youth here, where do you go here at EThekwini Municipality? Do you know a building where G20 is? Okay, so please consider that we need an office where the youth will be able to go and access learnership, to go and ask about funding, and also the doctor that spoke about youth manifesto. In the youth manifesto, please, can we have a digital link that I'm sure you've got a register for today, where you will create a digital link that everyone who has attended today, even others who are not here, that link where you will come to the youth, and then through the link, the youth will be able to say, what do they need? What is talking to them at present, not maybe what you are thinking for them. Let's have an exchange program. I see we've got about 21 flags. Why don't we take our youth, go to China, learn skills, and come back? That's what we need at the moment. Something that is practical, something that is talking to the youth now to decrease the unemployment rate. Thank you.
Okay. Let's take the last one. Last one. The one who has a mic this side.
There's a mic, yeah?
Last contributor.
Sorry, here's a mic this side.
Let's have the one who had the mic first. Sorry about that.
What's about?
Good day. My name is Nati Dambo. I'm a youth myself.
Right.
I see the problem of unemployment, but we're not addressing the core issue, the core problem. The core problem is inequality in education. It starts there. For information and every resources that we need, that we are aware of, it starts from education. A kid that schools in a school, doesn't know the opportunities that a kid knows from a private school. That's what I see. See, in primary school, I went to a private school. In high school, I went to a public school. In primary, we were taught how to create websites. And a public school learner has no idea how to even do that. See, in private schools, there are opportunities that public schools don't have. In public schools, we're not giving much knowledge, but in a private school, there's so much knowledge. They know about the G20. They know about the exchange problems. Kids from Hilton, they go to other schools in China, and China goes to South Africa because they know about those exchange problems. They know about the funding opportunities. They know about the sustainable development goals, and public scholars don't know that. So once a public scholar goes to university, they don't know half of the things that a private scholar knows, which creates a huge gap between the working class and the ones that are the working class for private and the working class for public. You see, it also goes deeper. It goes to competence. We talk about unemployment, but we don't even talk about competence. Competence, what does it mean? How productive are these workers? You see, a public scholar, they only do academic work in high school. They don't do any sports. They don't do any debating. But a private scholar, they will do 5 extracurricular activities and still ace their subjects. And public scholars, they only focus on academics, which further leads to what? The public scholar goes to university, and they will stop being introduced for other different activities. Then they drop out. Check the stats. It says that most public scholars that get introduced to time management, their activities, they drop out because they're not used to how a life should be. And yet a private scholar is going to be able to be competent because they're used to that. Which further creates what? Those that are leaders and those that are just going to be the workers. What does that do? Many of the workers that we're going to have was create those sponsor shops are kids from the majority of South Africans and the leaders of the minority. That is the future South Africa that we're going to have. We are addressing unemployment, but we're not addressing the core problem. We're not addressing the illiteracy rate that we have. You see, when it comes to decision making, many South Africans always make the wrong choices because they do not have information. They don't know what's the right choice. For example, whenever we have voting in wards, right? People are going to vote for the person that they like, not for the person that's compatible and competent.
Thank you, Zaid.
Thank you.
Like I said, we're running out of time. Let me offer the opportunity to Mr. Benjamin.
I'm going to wrap up, and perhaps I should start off to say to our Honourable Deputy Minister and Madam Executive Deputy Mayor that it's very evident, and to all the panel members, that it's very evident that we will have to come back. We don't have enough time to unpack everything we are discussing here. But I want to say this, our President has back in SONA, in the beginning of the year, stated that the G20 project is one that involves the whole of South Africa. It's a whole of society, it's a whole of South Africa project. And that's the reason why our Deputy Minister is here today and why the team is here to support him. Because the G20 involves everyone and it involves you as well. I want to also say that perhaps Deputy Minister will agree that one of the major elements we have not discussed here and that directly impacts on all the issues you have mentioned as an audience and as the panel is the fact that South Africa will host a G20 social. The G20 social summit is going to be much bigger than the G20 leaders summit. It's a massive event that involves the whole of society. From 18 to 20 November, our country will host the G20 social. That means that all of you need to study how you get involved into the working group, not the working groups, the engagement groups of the G20. There are 13 engagement groups. It's not only the Y20, the youth, there's a women's 20, there's a business 20, there's an urban 20. All those engagement groups speak directly to what you want to achieve, what you want South Africa to do in those issues related to youth, women, business, urban, and many more engagement groups.
you need to perhaps go and have a good look at the G20 website and see how you can link up to the Y20, for example. But all I want to say is that our president, our ministers, our deputy ministers, and government officials are committed to involving social society, civil society in everything as we lead up to the summit. So 18 to 20 November, you will have a social summit, and that then, those outcomes will feed into the actual leaders summit on 23 November. So for now, the big challenge that you have is to see to what extent can you get involved in the work of the engagement groups, whether it's Y20, Women 20, or whatever. I have so many more things to say, but I just want to say this: it's a fantastic opportunity for us to work and to engage in this fashion in sessions like this. It's by far the best time of my whole day. After this, it just gets chaotic, but this is the engagements we look forward to, and we really hope we can come back to that. Let me just say maybe one more thing, that our G20 presidency is extremely alive to, and that is the issues that we are mentioning here, the demographic dividend that we might have, the fantastic opportunities we see in our youth. There is one major issue that keeps us from realizing our full potential there, and it's not so much South Africa as the whole of Africa, and that is the issue that speaks to debt sustainability. The big challenge in Africa at the moment is how to sustain debt. It has increased massively. The Africa dividend that is paid on debt, on foreign debt, is so enormous that up to 60% of African countries cannot fulfill their obligations to their own people. They cannot provide proper medical, proper public health, proper educational facilities that was mentioned by the last speaker. So please, when you engage and when you study, please spend some time and bring to us solutions for the big issue that is challenging Africa today, and that is servicing foreign debt. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You always remind me that I'm not that tall because, yeah, people always say I'm tall. Now I know I'm not that tall.
You too.
Unfortunately, like I said, we have run out of time. I would have loved to have more engagements with our panel. Let me now bring this to a conclusion as I invite the program director back on stage to take over from where we left off.
Kindly give them another round of applause. But most importantly, can you give the youth that spoke here a big round of applause? Even the lady over there that's worked with youth empowerment, although you're a woman, if you are here and you have energy that is young at heart, you are a young person. Please make sure you also give her a round of applause. As we are wrapping up to a conclusion, DM, both DMs, Mayor and the Minister, there's a realization that you must have that young people do not only need these occasions on similar or youth month only. They need those occasions continuously. Now, I'm saying this because I went to primary school, Edumani Primary, Kwamash. I went to a higher primary school in Mugelani, Kwamash. Kodwa ngahamba ngaye China, ngaye Brazil, ngaya eCuba, ngabuya futhi ngaya eMelika, ngisemukelani kwamashu. I did not study English as a first language. It was always a second, because obviously kwamashu to Zulu speaking society. Now English I had to quickly learn in an aeroplane going to all of those places, because I discovered they speak very posh English. Now I had that responsibility to make my English very posh. Now why do I say these things? It's not just the governments and the schools that have a responsibility of bringing these things. It's also us, as young people that live within that society, to make sure that we open up opportunities for the school to know. Now when I was in Imugelane, it was one young lady that came and said they need one young person that is good in maths, accounting, that can go to these countries. And here I was, I got the opportunity that way. Now, in saying that, it does not mean that some of our schools don't lack in that. They still do, but some of our schools are far ahead. The first female opportunity that way. Now, in saying that, it does not mean that some of our schools don't lack. The first was a Kenwood. Esithengile. Kodwa njengamanje kungasuthi akushayela umkhumbi uzashaya isidudla. From eClermont, and she also had to study English just like myself, and she did not know. Now I'm saying this because there are many things that we, although we have information to, but we seem to ignore somehow. Now we've got social media, TikTok and politics. Now a lot of things that were raised here are things that are relevant. Just like this one thing, which is, I always say it's a gentleman's agreement, Lusana, you agree with me. When they say there's a 30% set aside for young people in business. Now that's one of the policies that needs to be fixed. Now we are speaking about G20 giving us young people opportunities economically, but what are we saying about the red tape and the gentleman agreement? Because it's not written down anyway, I've never seen it. It's just an agreement that says, no, we'll give set aside. But it needs to be properly written and correctly elaborated on how that 10% set aside is given to young people so that they benefit when come November in these economies that we are being promised. Now, those are everything that we need to look out for. But this is me, a deputy mayor, saying, even us in EThekwini at our level, this engagement need to continue, because I don't think today was fair. It was raining, it was quick, and you did not have enough time. But as we move on, maybe we'll get enough time. But before we formally close, let me allow the Deputy Minister to have one or two words, and then we continue with the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I think what we must agree is that what Mr. Zubair said, we want to make a commitment to come back. So I hope, Malusi, we have the email address and contact details of everyone here, so that we have a proper, what I call a policy development debate. Because namhlanje I've seen you have the high level engagement here, and we have not managed to get the succinct details from Aban, which are yourself. And if we don't do that, we'll be committing a great mistake. But there's obviously one condition. There will be one condition. You will get your invitation, but there's one condition. The condition is very simple. There's the G20 South African Presidency website. It contains all the detail that the experts have spoken about. But more importantly, it also has the Y20 concept document, for you to be able to accept our invitation to come to what I call then a working session, so that your thoughts and your proposals must then find expression to the G20 presidency. We want everyone to have a formal submission. Diabala. You have a formal submission, Uguti, look, in terms of 1, 2, and 3, this is the areas in G20 that you would want to speak to. For example, there was people that have raised the issues about the skills deficit. Now in the G20, there's an engagement group called the Employment Working Group, so that you will be able then to make a contribution like that. And we want to commit, because it's June now, we must allow you maybe the entire youth month to do your contribution, a policy document. We will need to get the email address, Malusi, so that you send your submissions there. So that when we come back, Ugoti, we want to develop a document that says, Sibani Bani, if Kulukani Chengaza have made the submission, we want to then publish it and then engage with it, even if it's in a form of an abstract form. Can we agree on that? Yes. And then what I want to do also with the consulates that are present here, consulate of PRC of India is here, and of Lesotho. We want to also present the deliverables from the consulates. For example, you have said that, Uguti, you know, this bilateral agreement, especially trade relations that we have with this consulate, what is the tangible issues for young people? So that the PRC's Consul General that are sitting here with us must have a document, and when he comes to our session, he'll tell you, Uguti, this is the opportunities in relation to China with South Africa, and this is his proposal of how many out of our engagement and looking at the G20 priorities of South Africa, what is the tangible commitment and opportunities that China will present to South Africa, because it's our strategic comprehensive partner. And then India will also come and present the opportunities, because remember, Baracho, India and China is the two countries with the highest populations in the world, isn't it so? So it means they have highest population and biggest opportunities, isn't it so? And then Lesotho, it will be important for you to understand the role of Lesotho in terms of the South African Customs Union, SACU, and how it interlinked, how the Lesotho economy is interlinked with South Africa's economy, and how South Africa benefit out of the South African Customs Union ban. I think it's an important thing. So that you must understand Botswana, Lesotho, Namibia, what is it that we are benefiting out of our SACU relationship. So I thought I must make that type of a commitment to all of you, so that we will look obviously at August, July, so that we are prepared for the leadership summit that are coming through. And in between the time, if you have any other interest, we'll make sure that we get the email address. Nelson, maybe you must just give her an email address, so that she must tell you what is the email address to deposit your documents on. And any other issue in relation to our G20 presidency, you'll get the opportunity. Uguti, so namhlanje is the first occasion you will see us. If we agree, Kumbula Nelson Mandela month is when? July. Isn't it so? can we agree that in July we are coming back to KZN? So, I don't want to say anything. I think I want to find out your thinking. Hakiri, what I've heard now was just sound bites. I want to find out your thinking, because you see, what Advocate Vaso have said is that Peter Mokaba, they have fulfilled the destination. Uguti, we need to understand how do we take forward this newfound struggle. Is up. So thank you very much. We'll see you in July.
This deserves another round of applause. I think a deputy minister is my kind of person. I like a person that brings about commitments. Deputy Mayor will tell you, whenever I visit City Hall, Thick and Flow to speak to the mayor and herself, I always say, I am not leaving until I get a commitment. What is the commitment? Now we have a commitment. This means we'll be back, maybe not in this venue. Our lead department, Derico and IGR, will be telling us in which venue we'll be in. But now I've got this card. Because it has so many details, I think I'll be just outside so that I give all the information on this card rather than giving it here. Or, Toby, do you want to take it? But so that you get all the details from it, but she'll also advise which other way you would be able to get details from this card. Now we've come to the end of our session today, and luckily enough, we have commitment for a second session. That means when we come back on our second session, we would have done what was said we must do. Visit the website, check what contributions can we make that will make sure that the second session becomes fruitful. Now, what I'm going to tell you is the instructions to lunch. Obviously, our instructions to lunch will say, outside there's a tent. I'm sure everyone saw it. We are all expected to go to the tent. That way our lunch will be served. Our guests and our dignitaries, you go back to the holding room that you had met earlier in the morning when we arrived. And noting that we started very late, we do apologize. We did not aim to start at the time that we started, but I had to explain to the Deputy Minister and the Deputy Mayor that when it's raining, us young people take a longer time to wake up, generally. Now, if it was sunny, we would have been here on time. But because it was raining, we had to make sure that what we are wearing is in accordance to the weather. So we took much needed time. But without wasting any time, thank you to our partners, our departments, and thank you to young people. Deputy Minister, we appreciate this opportunity. Our panelists, thank you very much. As we move forward to lunch, thank you. Have a safe journey home after your lunch. Last one is